Hello, everyone, and welcome to another brand new spoiler review episode for Ted Lasso. We're doing episode 11 today, A Midnight Train to Royston. Woo, 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 woo. Yeah, we're doing that today. We're talking about it. I am one of your hosts for this review. I'm the Outlaw John Roca, joined as always for these reviews by my fellow geek buddy and fellow Ted Lasso lover, Shannon McClung. Shannon, how are you? And how are you feeling after this episode 11? So much happening here to our main characters as we speed towards a finale for season 2.
So, Johnny, I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but something something that I've noticed or found out rather a couple of weeks ago is that Apple Plus releases their stuff at midnight Eastern time. So if you are on the West Coast, you can get it at 9 p.m. I did not know this for a very long time, so I was really forcing myself to stay up until midnight. Now, having known this, I watched the episode around 9:30. And my goodness, I had to go back and watch portions of it again this morning. I didn't think I was going to have time to rewatch the whole thing. But my goodness, man. I mean, at 45 minutes, the Ted Lasso, the comedy, is running longer than most network dramas and is doing a better job.
Yeah, you could argue that, sure.
My heart is it's been bruised, it's been battered.
Yeah.
And episode 11 has done nothing to help that.
Yeah, I think overall I liked this episode, but I have to say the moments themselves were pretty poignant and powerful and emotionally stirring, both positive and negative. But I don't know if the buildup through the entire season has been there to earn those moments. And I think that's where I am about everything. But overall, the performances, the acting, especially Juno Temple in this episode, you know, every few episodes, Juno gets an episode to really show you why she's such an integral part of this show. And I think this episode absolutely highlighted her strengths as an actress. Remember, she started out as a young actress, seeing her grow into her power as a woman and seeing this show kind of put her into the limelight, into the spotlight in a way that no movie has ever done for her or other TV shows ever done for her is great to see. And this episode really showcased her abilities as an actress, Shannon.
Yeah, fully agree. I mean, because with that character, Keeley is such a light, happy character. So when you have those moments where, and she gets a lot of colors to play in this episode. You get those moments that are a little heavier that you do have to see, or rather that you see this side that she doesn't show a whole lot. This more serious side, this more vulnerably raw side.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many moments that your heart just breaks for her.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way they have set this up, I mean, if the show seriously is only going to be 3 seasons, I know you had said that that's what they had announced.
That's what they announced. Seasons. Yeah.
I mean,
nobody believes it, but that's what they announced.
Yeah. I mean, this is poised to be the Empire Strikes Back of Ted Lasso. I mean,
that's a great comparison.
At this point, Ted Lasso has had his hand cut off.
Yes.
Most of Richmond has had their hand cut off at this point. We'll see if Lando, Leia, and Chewie make it there in time to rescue Luke.
Yeah, we shall see for sure. And this is your final spoiler warning. We're going to get into this episode here and break it down and spoil some big things that happened in the episode. So if you haven't seen the episode, go and watch it. Come back and join us. And I know those of you who are Geek Buddies fans, you know the way we usually do the reviews is break it down into sections. The way we do the reviews for Ted Lasso, though, is we talk about storylines. And I think that's the better approach to a show like this. So we're going to start off with the Sam storyline here. This is very, very interesting. Look, I'm going to come in as a soccer purist, as a football purist, and say there's no fucking way that Richmond is 1 game away from getting promoted to the Premier League. When we last saw them where they were at mid-table with that much left in the season, those other teams would have had to completely fold for Richmond to be in a position to be able to be promoted to the Premier League 1 game away. That means you're in the 1st or 2nd position in the championship, not in the 3 to 6 position, because those are the teams that battle. So I'm just shocked that they're presenting it this way. But then again, that's TV. This is not a sports show that's a background. The sports is the background for it. So I just wanted to get that out of the way for all you football purists who maybe felt the same way I did, that it's a bit ridiculous.
I mean, I don't have the knowledge of football that you do in terms of the rankings and how all that works.
Yeah.
Did you have a problem with Cleveland coming back at the end of Major League? Did you have a problem?
No, because they showed you that happening.
Did you have a problem with the Mighty Ducks getting to the championship at the
I'm going to say I had a problem with the Mighty Ducks. That's for damn sure. But that's my own personal issues. But no, Major League, that's believable. We've seen teams go like the Cardinals right now are on a 17-game win streak and got themselves into the playoffs. That's possible because you have 182 games or 181 game season or 82. I forget what it is for baseball. But with football, you have 38 to 45, 46 games in depending on what the level you're at in order to do that. If you're half the season and you're like 20 to 30 points behind the leaders, you're not making that up. You're just not. It's not. You'd have to have such a colossal breakdown and be the only team that somehow is elevating. It just wouldn't happen. But it's TV. That's not the point of this show. It's about the characters. So let's move past that. Either way, they do that to show that Sam is, he's just got his first hat trick. Everybody loves him. His big celebration. But of course, him and Rebecca are still a little bit taking the break. And there's a text exchange that we see and a little bit of on the nose symbolism there of his teammate being unable to handle a Lamborghini. Rebecca is essentially a Lamborghini with that situation. And Sam might have trouble handling this as a young man in this situation. Well, who comes into the situation but the great Sam Richardson, great actor. He is playing this gentleman, Edwin Okufu, who is now all of a sudden in charge or owns the largest tech firm in Ghana. His father has died and willed it to him. And this whole episode, it is Sam being courted by Edwin to come back to Africa to play for this team, Casablanca, so that he can make this team or he can make this club one of the best clubs in the world and lure African players back to Africa, because he thinks if they train there, if they learn there, they will in 20 years win a World Cup. One of the nations there in Africa will win a World Cup, which a lot of people have been predicting for a number of decades now, as African players have become more and more skilled and effective in their respective big clubs all over the world. So this is not another impossibility, but he's being courted. And this brings up conflicting emotions for Rebecca, who doesn't know if she wants to keep him because she cares for him and has feelings for him, or if it's good for the club, or if she should let him go back to Africa to play for Mr. Okofu. Okay, Shannon, Sam Richardson, great choice. Perfect for a comedy like this. But what did you think as you were seeing this storyline play out with Sam? Where do you think we're going with this? Is this just a conflict that's been thrown in, or do you think there's something maybe possibly more sinister or darker happening here?
No, I wouldn't say it was sinister or darker. I think this is just good drama. That Rebecca, like Sam is a valuable player. I mean, her feelings aside, he has become one of Richmond's best players.
Yes.
So to give him up mid-contract, I mean, again, you'd be able to speak to this better than I would. That's pretty out there.
But yeah, that's a lot of money. 3 years, that's a lot of money. Yeah.
But when Edwin is so willing to put that much money on the table, at some point you have to view it as a business to be like, all right, we're getting rid of this guy for way over market value. Now we have some capital to spend on other good players. Again, I don't know how that works in European football. But I mean, Rebecca, I mean, she doesn't want to let him go. I mean, yes, it does not hurt that he's a fantastic player, but she doesn't want to let him go, even though this could be the best thing for him. So, I mean, I think that's just good writing. That's just, you want you want the characters to be in conflict, and conflict doesn't always mean arguing. Right. I mean, sometimes it's just you don't know what to do. Presenting characters with difficult choices. One detail that I thought was really, really fun was the fact that Sam drives a Tesla.
Yes.
And that he has such an issue, he has issue with the oil company that, left, that this is a guy who is
great point.
Very mindful of the environment, because he grew up around, private companies destroying his home. So I was just like, oh, that's a really smart detail. Sam Richardson is such a charming actor. I mean, most people I would imagine know him from Veep. But I mean, he's just a charming guy. And we're used to seeing him play so comedic. Like even, what was it, the Amazon movie, the Tomorrow War?
Yeah.
You know, very funny role in that. He had that Comedy Central show that I think it's called the Detroiters.
Yeah, the Detroiters. Yep.
I mean, really funny guy. And it was such an interesting flavor to see him play. Still very affable, very likable, very charming. But, you know, I don't detect any malice in this guy. Like, this is a guy who has a lot of money and wants to do this thing. Like, he is playing the long game in terms of bringing a World Cup to Africa.
Yeah.
And I think, like, the idea that this you know, restaurant that serves West African food that Sam didn't know about is like, oh yeah, I just made this. All these people are actors. I just wanted you here. All the things that he was doing, like the painting that he was bringing back, that he was bringing back with him. I mean, this is like someone who is using their money. I don't know. I mean, it's weird. I'm looking at it like it's awesome. Like, yes, you have gotten a hold of these funds. You want to help your home. I imagine we're going to see him again. Like, I can't think that this is a one and done. I would assume that he would come back next season in some capacity, which would, I'm assuming, mean Sam would leave. And I don't know. I mean, I'm at a very interesting crossroads with the writers to be like, oh man, you have set up some really interesting situations. That I have no idea how some of them are going to play out. Some of them, I'm pretty sure I know which way they're going. But this one, it's like, I don't know. Like, you have presented Sam with a very unique opportunity. Even though he basically did say at the beginning, like, I don't want to leave Richmond.
Yeah, that's what he said. And I think this is going to take a dark turn. And I'll tell you why, because he's clearly planned this out. And if he's bought a museum, bought in actors, bought a restaurant, brought in his own chefs, he has been planning this out. And this whole idea of, you know, I'm going to break up my dad's company, I feel weird being a billionaire, it's too good to be true. And so for me, I know Ted Lasso likes to present people that are sweet, blah, 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 but they also do like to show you the more insidious parts of human nature within people. Even though they're essentially good people, it doesn't mean they can't do bad things or maybe have nefarious reasons for doing the things that, or selfish reasons rather, more than nefarious, for doing the things they're doing. I could see Okafu, because this is the thing that tipped the scale for me, because I was kind of like, because I'm a naturally suspicious person, but I was on the fence like this, and people know that.
I know.
Yes, you know, it served me well, and sometimes not, but you know, it saved me more than it's hurt me. But you see in this moment, I'm still alive. So you see in this moment, when he says, take all the time you need, you have 72 hours, that was the moment that I was like, okay, there's something weird here. And we didn't see the tail end of Sam's conversation with his dad. So is there pressure being put on here by Okafu that will appeal to Sam in a negative way? If Sam, because Rebecca shows up, and by the way, that was a little, Rebecca's kind of playing, I didn't like the way the show did that with Rebecca, having her waiting outside his house like that. That just seems weird to me. And I feel like that seems like she got to say what she got to say, and then she walked away. And I'm like, no, that's selfish. That's selfish. If you're not going to talk about the entire relationship, you're not going to spend time having a conversation about this and exploring all the angles with this person, then what you did is basically set this situation up to ambush him, to give him your feelings, and then walk away without dealing with the repercussions or consequences of the words you said. And I think that's a little bit of a cheat here in the show that I didn't 100% like. If you're going to show up, have the conversation. So it puts Sam in a position where she's essentially said what she needs to say. Okafu has said what he needs to say, and now he's left with like, well, I guess I got to figure this out somewhere, one way or the other. But I just have a feeling that if Sam turns him down, there's going to be threats made to his family. There's going to be his dad calling him maybe and trying to pressure him, like, why are you rejecting your country? Why are you rejecting coming back home? So there's a lot of pressure to put on a young man's shoulders. Remember, Shannon, he said he was 21 years old. That's a lot to carry for a 21-year-old person, to carry the weight of the continent of Africa on your shoulders, to possibly lead them, not yourself personally maybe, but inspire other players and other generations coming up behind you to play in African teams, and then to eventually club teams, and then to eventually lead them to a World Cup, one of the countries to a World Cup. So it's a lot of pressure is all I'm saying.
I mean, I think you're probably right. Like, I look at that as someone saying you have all the time you need. or take all the time you need. You have 72 hours. I just feel like that's the privilege of wealth.
Privilege? Yeah, I guess so.
But
yeah,
I know, again, from a storytelling perspective, I know you are probably right that he might have. There might be a darker motivation to his actions. With what's being presented, I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that this is a good guy this is a good guy who happens to have a lot of money, who wants to do something great for his home.
Yeah.
That being said, TV is all about conflict.
Right.
So you're probably right, even though I don't want to believe it.
Who knows? I don't think he found Banksy. I don't think that was Banksy. So maybe that's a little bit.
Oh, that was funny.
that was a great little moment. I like that.
It's just some put upon guy who looks like he's riding the tube every day.
Let's create this stuff.
In terms of the Rebecca thing,
let's move that. Rebecca in this situation, but also Rebecca telling Ted about the situation with Sam. Talk to me about Rebecca as a footnote to this kind of, or not a footnote, but an additional element to this storyline here in this episode.
I mean, you could tell Ted was at a loss for words, that he was constantly changing his stance. Because ultimately, even though he and Rebecca are friends, she is still his boss.
Right.
And every piece of advice that he gives her, I mean, it all has to be taken with a grain of salt, because we know Ted Lasso, and we think like Ted Lasso doesn't have a mean bone in his body. That being said, he is still operating as a subordinate.
Yeah.
So again, I don't think Ted probably gave her his complete unvarnished thoughts, because Ted's got a lot of other stuff going on. I don't think he is able to access those unvarnished thoughts right now because of how much is going on with him personally. What she did in terms of waiting outside the house, again, this is just good TV.
Get in and get out. Right. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, the moment is going to be far more effective in person rather than Sam reading a text. And I think if Sam wanted to stop her, but he also didn't know what to say, because he sees the value in what he is being offered professionally, despite that he does have feelings for someone that it's unclear whether she can not return them, but can capitalize on them.
Well, and it just occurred to me as you were talking, Shannon, and I mentioned this earlier, like the Lamborghini scene with his teammate, that could symbolize both Okafu and Rebecca, two wealthy people that Sam is having to navigate, and he might have some trouble handling this wealthy situation, as Lamborghini is a very wealthy thing. So are both of these people. So that may be a little bit of symbolism about Sam's entire storyline in this episode. So shout out to them for a little deft symbolism going on. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see if Shannon's right, the hopeful optimist is right, or if the pessimist is right. I'm sure next episode. Well, I don't know if we'll see Sam next season, but we better damn well see him next episode. I'm going to say this, and I don't mean it in a negative way, but I'm a little tired of the show this season popping up storylines and then disappearing for episodes and popping up storylines and disappearing. Like Jamie Tart, what the F? So it's been a little weird on that front, but let's move on to our next storyline. We mentioned Ted. We mentioned the Sam and Rebecca situation. Well, another relationship that's got some issues going on, or at least issues that are presented in this, is the Sam and Keeley. The Roy and Keeley relationship, and Nate. In addition to this Nate situation going on, so we get Roy and Keeley. We've had some questions about some issues with their relationship as the season's gone on here, Shannon. But this is the episode where we saw that maybe there are actual cracks here. Whether it's earned or not is a separate conversation, and we'll have that conversation. But the show is presenting us a situation here where Keeley has this interview coming up where she has to kind of talk about herself and talk about her career, and that she's a businesswoman now, and she's moving past this idea of what she was in the past, which was a model and what have you. She is now kind of fully embraced being this businesswoman. She's not without her fears or vulnerabilities or insecurities, which are so cute to see and so powerful to see in a character like this. And so she's setting up for this shoot. Roy's got to do the shoot with her, this photo shoot with her for Vanity Fair. There's a funny story, a subplot about Roy's eyebrows, which I think is hilarious. And then we move into Keeley and Nate going suit shopping. Keeley needing an outfit for the shoot, Nate wearing the suit. Nate, like in a moment of emotion and drinking and what have you, as Keely's being very complimentary of him, Nate sneaks in for a kiss. Keely doesn't pull away. Keely stays in that moment. So it's not that Nate and Keely would have anything. It's more a matter of like, what does this symbolize? And then she's very kind to him when Nate is completely mortified at what he did. And then he runs off, spits in the mirror as he does in these moments. But then later, Roy is having a conversation with the teacher there of Phoebe for 3 hours, a little fun conversation, and is just texting back Keely. He knows he's got to get to a photo shoot, but when she asks him, "Are you married?" he says no, but doesn't surrender that he does have a girlfriend. So later on, when they're doing the shoot, and they have this really fantastic moment with Keely and Roy, where Keely is expressing her vulnerabilities and her fears, and Roy kind of tells her she's amazing. Then we get this moment where they're looking at each other while the camera woman goes off and grabs some more film or more whatever it is, and a lens or something, and they reveal these things to each other. First, her with Nate, which Roy receives really well, because I'd have been like, I'm going to kill him. But Roy's just like, that must have been awkward for you. And then Roy reveals what happened with the teacher. And then Keely reveals that Jamie Tart told her he loves her. So, Shannon, is this real, or is this just kind of trumped up conflict here by the writers for this storyline that they're just going to resolve in a positive way? Because these two people are way too smart to be in a situation like this, and they've been through too much. They're so rock solid. It seems odd to try to shake this relationship in a way that isn't as, like, the reasons they're shaking it aren't as powerful as the reasons they're together. So what do you think about this?
Well, it's interesting because Keely's role pre-Richmond, she's a model. She's sort of like a social media celebrity. She's kind of famous for being kind of famous. So the idea that she would be this nervous about having an interview, about having to really kind of expose herself, expose her spirit, essentially. I mean, I feel like you don't get those big social media followings without doing a little bit of that. But again, not having one, I don't know. But poor Keely is just being put through the ringer this year.
Yeah.
Is their relationship rock solid? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you look back to the beginning, and Keely prefers Roy when he's vulnerable. She was actually using his retirement speech as spank bank material.
Sure.
And then when they're working together and basically living together, he was around all the time, and that didn't work for her, and they found a way around it.
Yeah, he understood her need for space.
Yeah. I mean, they seem to be a couple that does communicate very, very well.
Yeah.
For the most part. And then getting into this, I mean, I thought there was something to the teacher when we first met her in the first or second episode.
Yeah,
I'm like,
me too.
You're giving her a lot of camera presence for someone that is, just his niece's teacher.
Right.
And listening to how they speak to each other, it's a completely different dynamic than he has with Keely. And there's something, I mean, this is a terrible way to put this, but it's when you've gotten comfortable in your relationship and you're so used to this other person, something just a little different starts to look good.
Yeah.
And the fact that she doesn't seem like adult, I mean, the fact that she is attractive. She is smart. He can have a different type of conversation with her than he does with Keely. Not that he can't have it, but it's just not something that they do. And the moment, oh my gosh, as she's putting that tie around Nate's neck,
you knew it was coming, right?
I was afraid it was coming.
Yes.
Like most things in this show, John, I don't want you to be right because I'm being the hopeful optimist, but I can see it like, oh yeah, this is probably going to happen. But as they are so close, and as you pointed out, they had been drinking, which again, not an excuse.
No, of course not. No.
But they had been drinking. They are very close. Nate is someone that is searching for his identity right now. Like he talked about, this is the first time he actually vocalized, like, I want to be the boss. I want to be the boss. I want to be in charge.
Right.
And what does someone in charge do? They take what they want. Despite the ramifications afterwards. Which I mean, I know I'm kind of pivoting to Nate here. I mean, it gives me a little bit of hope for Nate that he did regret it right away, that he seemed to be so sorry. But then some other stuff happens, which we'll get to that. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't like the moment that she reveals what Jamie said to her.
Yeah.
And that there has been some passage of time, that I think is where that may have been the straw. That
I know, but like that's sometimes people do that because they don't want you to get upset, right? Because it doesn't mean anything, and it's not something she's going to act on, and it's not something that's going to happen. Because I get it. In the show, although I don't think they've earned this situation here, this issues with Roy and Keeley. Every relationship has issues. It's how you navigate those issues, how you come to the resolution of those issues is important. And it seems like Roy and Keeley always find a way to come together after an issue pops up in their relationship. The show's done a really effective job of showing that a healthy relationship, I would argue, because Roy very much has built up this wall, and we spoke about it, I think last week or the week before in our review, this wall where it's tough to penetrate because he is a sensitive guy. He's had to build this up in order to survive in this very alpha male dominated world of sports. But then you look at Keeley, and Keeley, like this idea that she has relied on her looks, that's something that's not going to cost you that much. But who you are as a person, putting yourself out there, that's a real strong thing. And it's so funny that the things that she loved about Roy being vulnerable, she is scared to do here in this moment, because she knows the cost of that vulnerability, And so it's powerful. But Roy's bridge was very far to walk, his vulnerability, surrendering it to Keeley. Keeley now has to walk her own bridge of vulnerability to this new world where she's actually escaping the comfort zone of Richmond and being put out there for a global audience to read and find out about her. And what does that mean? That means more of her life is going to be possibly put under the microscope. What is that going to mean for her? So you've got them go, but you have these little moments where Keeley is saying like, well, Roy hates doing this stuff with me. Right? Since when has that been an issue? You knew the guy he was, right? So, but that doesn't mean that great people don't split up. Like great relationships don't eventually end because they're just too different on certain basic principles, and maybe that's what it is. Keeley is so ready. I mean, how is Roy going to handle it once Keeley is as famous as he is? Possibly, is he going to be able to handle that? That could be an interesting thing to explore next season as well. But also, you're right, the way they present that team. And by the way, that's Ruth Bradley. She's fantastic, and you're right, gorgeous as hell, and really simple, down to earth. I mean, that moment where the goofy teacher comes in is like, ooh, and she's like, grow the fuck up. And it's a great moment because she's very much a truth teller, right? She's grounded, she's foundational, she's from that kind of approach to life. That's Roy's approach to life. Keeley's is progressing and evolving to something else. So if they break them up, it's not necessarily a sad thing. If they break them up and she goes off with Jamie Tart, that's going to be a problem for me, because I could see them being fantastic friends. I just don't think the show has 100% earned these divisions in the relationship, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it's interesting how you said you knew who this person was before you got into this. There's a difference between knowing something at a distance and knowing something up close. There are concessions.
The intimate nature of it, yeah.
Yeah, there's concessions you're willing to make at the beginning because you're in the honeymoon phase. You're so thrilled to be in this new, exciting relationship. Yeah. After a little bit, those differences do start to become more stark. The idea that Roy doesn't necessarily want to go to red carpets. Roy doesn't want
it's not his thing.
Photographers around all the time. And that's something that's interesting with the teacher is she does not seem to be impressed by the celebrity status that is Roy. And it's not a dismissive like, oh, you're just some footballer. It's that she doesn't even talk about it. He is just the uncle of one of her students.
Yeah.
And that is it. That is where it ends. Whereas Jamie likes the limelight, like he and Keeley, that's a shared interest that they have.
Right.
And I don't even I would say that Keeley likes the limelight. It's more that that's a part of her world.
That's been her life forever. Yeah.
Yeah. And she navigates it.
Yeah.
So the fact that Roy actively sort of eschews it, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's
the issues make sense. And I want to make sure I make that clear. Do I think the show has 100% earned these divisions in this relationship? No, but the issues that are causing these divisions, they make sense. And they've done an effective job of that. That's for sure, because you've got two really good actors in Brett Goldstein and Juno Temple going back and forth. And once again, the thing that inspired me to speak about Juno Temple at the beginning of this review is that scene where she's surrendering her vulnerability in close up and then to Roy and having this back and forth. I mean, Juno is doing such incredible work in those eyes, man. It's just great to see and so believable. And if you've ever had anyone, or if you yourself have ever had a moment like that where you're having to confront putting yourself out there and being worried about the reaction, it is so, whether it's speaking at a PTA meeting or speaking at a Vanity Fair interview, that's all perspective and relative. It's such a believable performance by Juno Temple in that scene. So
yeah, you know, and in the aftermath of her, it was interesting when Nate was putting on that suit. Like he was behind the curtain of the dressing room, and she called him babe. Now she has called everyone babe throughout this season. But it did ring differently for me at that point. Now, this is not my saying that she's into Nate. I don't think she is at all. But I think someone like Nate, in sort of a slightly inebriated state, can misconstrue that.
Right.
And the aftermath of the kiss, when he's apologizing, and again, you can tell like she's such a good, like, it's okay. I know you didn't mean anything. It's fine.
She's been there. She said, we've all been there. So she's understood. Yeah.
You just feel so bad for her. And then after Roy admits that, like, I talked with the teacher for 3 hours. She asked me if I was married. I said I wasn't. Or she, I can't remember how they framed the question.
Is what he said. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you married? No. And he left it at that.
Didn't say anything more, is what he said. Yeah.
Yeah. And then her reaction is very difficult to figure out at that point. It's like, okay, are we just sort of truth telling right now?
Right.
Or is her bringing up Jamie in retaliation? Because knowing the situation you're in, that you're in the middle of a photo shoot with this guy who can be a bit of a time bomb, what is your motivation in that moment of revealing that?
Well, and there is one more. We'll move on from the storyline because I know we've been on it for a little bit, but another way to look at this is that is also the symbol and the mark of a strong relationship. Roy is telling her that the day of, Keeley had been like not telling him because she knows that Roy could get upset, and especially after Roy and Jamie she knows that Roy and Jamie had that hug, and Jamie broke down in his arms. Like, why would she tell him that Jamie did that when they're just repairing this relationship, which could be good for the club and could be good for everybody around? So I think she's telling him that in that moment because she wants to unburden herself of that, because she respects him and loves him and just wants that out there so that there's no issues going forward. Because she probably understands, just like she did with Nate, she understands that it was hard for Roy to tell her that, because I'm sure Roy has had many women that he's like had a thing for or hate on him or whatever through his life, just as Keeley has with men and women probably too. So you've got that moment. And so I think in the way this was them both like kind of telling their secret, because they don't want to have secrets from each other. Now, does that mean it'll lead to an even stronger relationship? Possibly. Or in the end, a very strong friendship. And I think that could be a very healthy thing to show on the show as well. You know, people can break up even after a very strong relationship, can break up and become even better friends. Happens all the time. It's possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think she has a vindictive personality. It was just something that I thought was curious. That I was like, wow, why would you uncork that right now?
Shannon, always thinking in relationships. Shannon. Let's move on.
You both revealed something. Let it go.
It's good. Wait till the next time. Keep it in the reserve. Keep that arrow in the quiver, for God's sake. All right. So let's move on to the last storyline here, and that's the Ted and Dr. Sharon Fieldstone storyline. And Nate, again, as a bit of a footnote to this storyline as well. But this was running through the whole episode, this idea that Ted wanted to stage a choreography for a going away party. He faked a birthday party to stage a surprise going away party for Dr. Fieldstone as a way of saying thank you, I guess. And you know, considering where they started with such friction in the first episode, to be at this point is pretty incredible. To see the progression of their relationship, I think that's one relationship that I think has worked really well through the season, and how they've touched base on it and talked about it and seen the progression of it. That has felt very natural. So anyway, he wants to do this, and he's getting the AFC Richmond boys to do the choreography for NSYNC's Bye 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 as a surprise for Dr. Fieldstone. By the way, Jamie Tart, very dedicated to this choreography in the front row. It was fun to see. But Dr. Fieldstone leaves without telling Ted, and has left these letters. So Ted sees this, gets the information from Higgins. He's not happy about it. Higgins gives him the letter. Little fun dad pun in there as well that gets Ted to take the letter. Don't let her get away with it. Let her get away with it. So it's very funny. And then he confronts Sharon at her when she's coming home. Once again, it's like the Rebecca thing, confronting, but he stays to have the conversation and reveals his vulnerability and says, you know, I have a thing about people leaving me. You know everything. You knew that. And she keeps saying, it's in the letter. Read the letter. He finally reads the letter, and his anger has dissipated, and he's actually very understanding of why Dr. Fieldstone did what she did. They go out to have a drink, and then he pulls it on her, takes off himself, leaves her with a note, one of the army guys. And just as he's walking away, he gets a text, or just as he's in another place, walked away from it, he gets a text from Trent Krim of The Independent, and Trent Krim reveals to him that he has written an article that is going up tomorrow morning. And in the article, it's about Ted's panic attack during the FA Cup semifinal. And the source he reveals was Nate, and asks him for a comment. Ted says no comment, and the show ends. So let's deal with the Sharon and Ted storyline here, and then we'll deal with this Nate son of a bitch right after that. So, oh yeah, there's not a stadium big enough to bury that son of a bitch right now in my mind. I almost tweeted that in capital letters, but I don't want to spoil Ted Lasso for people on a Friday morning. Shannon, talk to me. Sharon and Ted.
Oh, I'm just curious. Would you tweet at Nick Muhammad, you son of a bitch? I'm going to find you.
Bitch. No, I'm not one of those fans. You know, there are fans like that. It's like, that's an actor. That's a character. Those are two different things. But yeah.
Ted's reaction to this, to me, makes 100% sense.
Yes, agreed.
Makes absolute sense that you had made this breakthrough. You've revealed things to this individual who you've never revealed certain things to.
Yes.
And then for them to kind of up and leave without a goodbye, for his personality type, that is kind of an unforgivable sin. Yeah. And the fact that he goes and waits outside her home, and it seems like he probably waited for a while, creeping out in front of the building. Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense that he would react the way he does. But you also have to take into account that Sharon is a therapist. She is a professional. She's also a person.
Yeah. And
because she was leaving, I have to presume their sessions were probably done, unless they were going to continue that patient-doctor relationship virtually or over the phone. Right. So, you have to allow that space for be like, look, yes, this is my job, but I also have a life. I'm also human. Yeah. And goodbyes are not her thing. So watching them kind of make peace after Ted reads that letter, I was terrified he was going to rip it up. I was really, because as he's kind of flinging it around, I'm like, oh my God, don't rip up that letter, because that's going to be damage right there. But you see, again, a great performance by Jason Sudeikis as he makes it through this letter, and you see this this anger just kind of subside, and then into, I mean, I don't know if I would call it love, but into just this genuine tender moment of,
absolutely. Well, love is friendship. Absolutely.
Yeah. Pretty good letter. And then watching the two of them have drinks together, which I thought was like, oh, this is sweet. And this is really, really nice. And then watching Sharon have to deal with our fans, with Baz and Paul and the third guy, and talking about like, he's afraid of snakes in the garden. Yeah. It's like, well, your garden is your happy place. That's your safe place. And it's like, oh my God, she is great. Like, she told Ted already, I'm a great therapist and you made me better.
Right.
Yeah, and then having the one beer, because I was confused by that too. When the bartender only brought the one beer, it's like, oh, I ordered two. I was like, oh, well, Ted told me to give you this, and just the goodbye. I was like,
I love what she said. She pulled the Goodwill Hunting line. She said, "Son of a bitch stole my line." That's a Goodwill Hunting line. Yeah, it was great.
I know. We have friends who are a big fan of the of the Irish goodbye or the ghost goodbye, depending on how you want to look at it. But it's one of those things. I was like, oh, that is a brilliant move, and also something I don't feel like Ted would do.
Maybe Ted likes because Ted doesn't like it because he's been damaged by people who've left him. He likes it better if he leaves. There's a sense of control for him in his life. So I'm sure Dr. Fieldstone saw through that immediately and understood and didn't take that personally. I think she understood why he needed to be in power for him to leave the situation rather than her to leave it. And that's understandable. And, my girlfriend is a big fan of the Irish goodbye. She loves to do the Irish goodbye. I had no idea. You know me, man. I'll say goodbye. I'll work the room before I leave for 30 to 45 minutes.
Make the rounds.
Yeah, make the rounds. She's like, I'm ready to go. I'm going to be in the car. You make the rounds. I don't know you're going to be 20 minutes making the rounds, but I'll be in the car. So she takes the keys and she goes. That's basically how we do things. She's not a fan of sitting there and saying goodbye to everybody like that. But then again, she doesn't have 75 fucking friends like we do. That being so, all right. So Shannon McClung. We've come to the Nate moment that we've been building to this. We speculated that he would be the one to reveal the panic attack, and we were right. And I'm sure millions of other people who watched this show felt the same way too, that Nate was going to somehow betray Ted. But do you feel that the show has done an effective job with Nate in leading to this? Because we're seeing him at one moment yelling at Will about the suit, which is why he goes suit shopping, because it's the suit that Ted bought for him. And Nate all of a sudden is angry because Nate's also mad that Ted's going to take credit for the false nine, as if no one has ever come up with the false nine before. The false nine's been around for quite some time over the last few years, and very effective managers has used it. The fact that Nate thinks this is a brilliant decision that he's made tactically, it's hilarious to me on so many levels, but it leads to this idea that he wants to be in charge. He even asks Keeley at the suit shopping scene, have you ever wanted to be the person in charge, to be the head person? So what we've been speculating, Shannon, that he's going to eventually break off and run his own club. That is going to happen, clearly. Roy and Coach Beard try to tell him, hey, I love the Coach Beard Forrest story. That's fucking hilarious. Basically telling him, like, we all share the light. That's what it's all about. But he's very much wanting the spotlight. So it's a very interesting point here that we're exploring. So, and then eventually, I guess, at some point, he reaches out to Trent Grimm, maybe after spitting in the mirror and being like very angry at this whole situation. He needs to hurt someone else. So he reaches out to Trent Grimm and surrenders that story to him. And Ted's reaction is so heartbreaking, man. But how should we bury Nate? Have we come to bury Nate? And B, has the show earned this by vacillating between this really nebbish, insecure guy and this hardcore asshole?
Oh, I think they've absolutely earned it. Okay. I mean, because Ted gave him something that he didn't have before. He gave him some status. He gave him that feeling of being important. And when you've not had that, when you've not known how to adequately wield this new status, chances are you're not gonna be great at it the first time out. I mean, I thought it was interesting that both Beard and Roy are like, this is the job.
Yeah.
Like, this is the gig. I mean, yes, he is going to get the lion's share of the credit because he is the head coach. And what Nate is not thinking about is when the team is getting dogged on, Ted is taking the lion's share of the blame.
Exactly. And wait till Nate has to experience that. Good point.
100%. Like, that's the thing that someone who is new at this is not thinking about.
Yep.
The moment, because back when he did that spit take, the restaurant episode, someone in the YouTube comments, because we had talked about that, it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because it was so out of character. Someone in the YouTube comments, I remember, had written, this is not a moment of comedy. Like, this is a tragic moment. This is a guy who hates himself this much.
Right.
And when we got the the reprise of the spitting in the mirror, it was like, oh yeah, yep, this person who I don't remember who it was who wrote it, but the person who made that observation, you were right.
Yeah.
And I do think it was in the wake of that moment, that sort of embarrassing moment with Keeley, where he does hate himself again, that immediately he has to get it off of him and onto somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, like it's interesting because I thought the betrayal of Nate, I did not foresee him selling out Ted like that.
Really?
I thought him jumping ship
immediately
was totally going to happen. But the fact that he went behind Ted's back, went to a reporter, and a reporter that Ted has somewhat of a congenial relationship with.
Right.
And spills this very kind of closely guarded secret, this thing that Ted revealed in a moment of vulnerability. Oh my God, terrible. And like, again, I'm not a journalist, so I'm a little fuzzy on the ethics.
You don't surrender your source. That
but
just
it sure
doesn't happen.
Seems like you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And the order in which it happened, the fact that he says, this is coming out.
Yeah.
As a journalist, I had to write it. As someone who respects you, Nate was my source. Would you like to comment? Yeah. I'm like, that's effed up, because it's like you were, to me, that seemed like to be a very manipulative move. Like,
he was saying to him, I just, as a person who respects you, I wanted to give you fair warning. He could have blindsided him with.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking the heads up of the story. I'm thinking the fact that he burned Nate. Then gave Ted the moment gave him the opportunity to comment. Right. When you're going to be you're going to have an emotional reaction to this, to find out that this thing that you have not shared is going to get out there, not on your terms.
Right.
And then finding out, by the way, it was someone close to you who stuck the knife in your back.
Right.
Would you
That's
like to,
situation.
That seems like you're stoking the fires. Like
fair point.
Again, you're trying to provoke an emotional reaction, which as a reporter, you would probably love. Like, quote from Ted Lasso, that Nate the Great is a son of a bitch. And, something like that. So the way they have set up this penultimate episode, I would have to think that the finale is going to have to be 2 hours to cover everything adequately.
Wow. We shall see. At least 45 minutes, just like this one was, at least. But 2 hours could be something, that's for sure. All right. So clearly we've got these issues that have been presented in episode 11 that we're going to see how they play them out in episode 12. There's even this kind of meta moment where, Ted tells Rebecca, hey, it seems like this time last year you gave me some big reveal, blah, blah, blah. So I love that meta. He goes, I'll see you next year. Definitely. Right. So little meta moment between them for sure. Green lighting in season 3 and what have you. But this is going to be interesting as we see the Sam Okafu Rebecca storyline kind of playing out next episode. What's going to happen? Rory, Keeley, and Jamie in the next episode, and the teacher. And the other side of it is, and what's going to happen here with Nate and Ted. Now we've set up this Ted, Coach Beard, and Roy versus Nate situation. And maybe even, as we mentioned, Rupert possibly sliding into this. I mean, and it's no coincidence, I think, that they've let Nate gray his hair. Like, his hair all of a sudden is going gray. He's looking good in the suits. So you could see him managing a club on the sideline. So they've done a really good job with just kind of subtly transforming him episode to episode as the seasons go along, to where he looks like this guy in the black suit. He looked really good with the slightly gray hair. It looks like he could manage a club, Shannon. So this is definitely where we're headed for next season, I think.
I mean, I thought he looked good in the plaid suit. I was like, that's a bold choice.
Oh my.
And I thought it worked personally. I mean, what did you think about the Trent Crimm stuff? You kind of passed over that. Like,
well, I'll say this. I could see that happening, certainly between colleagues. I'm not saying that I know of that personally happening in the entertainment world, that maybe reporters have given other subjects of articles heads up, or publicists heads up. I've seen that happen. That is standard practice, of giving them maybe a little bit of a heads up if you want to keep the relationship with the publicist, or keep the relationship with the actor or director or the studio. I have heard of that happening for sure. Surrendering a source, that is so rare. People have gone to jail. Reporters have gone to jail to protect sources. So I don't know if this is something that Trent Crimm has done because he thinks Nate's a little weasel. And that's certainly possible. But he's also burned himself. If Nate is a future manager, Nate can come out and in some way kind of burn Trent Crimm or get back at him in some way. So this could have repercussions down the road. Do I like that he surrendered the source? Professionally, no. But I could also see it happening because him and Ted have developed a legitimate friendship. And remember earlier in the season, they have that moment where they're having a beer or a pint or whatever. And you see them connected, that there's respect, common respect between them. So I may not like that he surrendered the source, but he's probably coming from a place of seeing Nate as a weasel, which is why he did so. But there may be repercussions of this down the road. So that's my overall thoughts on that. So, all right. Well, there's our spoiler review for episode 11 of Midnight Train to Royston. Woo, woo. It is, we're heading into the finale next week. We'll see if Shane and I feel like doing a live finale like we've done for Geek Buddies. We'll see if we can schedule a time to do a live finale review with some of you all who've been watching us, and thank you all so much for watching us. Shannon, another fun episode to talk about with you. Always appreciate your perspectives on all this stuff. Please let people know where they can find you, my friend.
Yeah, if you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. And you can see me 2 more times every week with this gentleman to my right, along with no gentleman to my left, but normally that would be Michael Vogel. You can see us on the Geek Buddies normal show that drops on Thursdays, sometimes
Wednesdays, sometimes Fridays.
And our What If reviews that we do with Vogel and Miss Emma Fife.
That's right. That's right. Both of those are up. By the time this comes out, our show from this week is already out, and the What If review is already out as well. So go and watch those on the Outlaw Nation channel, or listen to them on the Geek Buddies podcast feed. Definitely sign up for both the Geek Buddies podcast feed and the Outlaw Nation podcast feed. Don't forget that everything we do in the Outlaw Nation that is not Geek Buddies related is on the Outlaw Nation podcast feed. All right, take care of yourselves. Oh, you can follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that bell button so you see when we're dropping all the new content. Come and follow me or subscribe to me on Twitch. A lot of the live shows are going to be moving to Twitch, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to move it to Twitch. So the Outlaw Nation on Twitch, that's where you come to watch those live shows now and hang out with us and have some even more interactive fun on a new platform. All right, take care of yourselves. Be well. We'll see what happens next week on the finale for Ted Lasso. But until then, you son of a bitch, Nate, you son of a bitch. All right, we'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.